This video will show you how to replace your rear brake shoes and drums on a Toyota Matrix. This will be located behind your rear wheels. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. To do this, safely raise and support the rear of the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground. After you've completed that, we're going to remove the rear wheel. You're going to find you have 5 21mm lug nuts. Go ahead and remove that and the wheel. Continuing on, you need to remove your brake drum. It's common for this to be stuck in place. Now, if that is the case, you could carefully remove it using a hammer. I always like to install one of my lug nuts, at least a couple threads. That'll prevent this from flying off and potentially hurting us. There's our brake drum. Let's continue on with the removal of our shoes and our hardware. Now we can take hold of the adjustment lever. We can pivot it to slide it out of place. If it's stuck behind this area, you could gently pry as necessary. A thorough inspection of that, you will be reusing it. We'll pause up along the top, and we're making our way all the way down to the lower spring next. Go ahead and take hold of one area of the spring, and we'll pull it away from our shoe. Now let's move along to our forward anchor pin and spring hardware. Now the pin will actually make its way from the back side of the backing plate straight through the backing plate and through your shoe. You can see the tip of it right here. You'll have a spring, and then you're also going to have a small plate. Now this small plate does have a slot on it for the tip of the pin to slide through. We're going to have to carefully press on it. You can either use the specialty tool or you can use some pliers. Once you have done that, you're going to twist it a quarter turn and it should slide out of place. Be careful not to let the spring fly out and potentially hurt you. Now I'm holding the pin along the backside. I'm pressing in on the spring. We can see that it does move. I'm going to go ahead and pivot this a little bit here. There we are. Now we have our spring. You can see my pin. I'm just going to pull that right out of there. It's extremely rotted. This is why we always like to replace them. And there's that small cap. Once again, rotted as well. Now we have plenty of movement here. Let's go ahead and take hold of the lower aspect of the shoe. We're going to pull it away from its anchor point, slide it towards the center. Now that dislodges it from the wheel cylinder, we can start removing our adjuster. When you go to remove the adjuster, you want to be careful not to press the wheel cylinder too far in one direction or the other. That can cause damage to the wheel cylinder itself. You can hold the shoes as necessary to get this out of position. There we are. Let's just pay attention to the orientation of this. We want to make sure we have the adjustment cog facing towards the rear of the vehicle during the installation process. Now, of course, we will still have to disassemble this, clean it, and re-lubricate it, but for now, let's continue our disassembly of the rest of the shoes. Now, you're going to find that you have a spring that makes its way from one of your shoes all the way over to the other. It goes behind the wheel bearing here, so it's a little difficult to see the majority of it unless you lift it up. Now that I have it lifted up, we can go ahead and remove it, and you can see why we had to do it this way. This hook actually goes along the back side of your shoe. A thorough inspection of that spring, we can see that we have the longer spring side on the forward side of this spring. So during the installation process, it needs to be in this exact same position. Now we have our other anchor point. We're holding onto the shoe. Remove the pin. Now let's have a look at the back side of this. Now right here is where we can see that we have our parking brake lever pivot point. It has a small U-shaped clip. You have to carefully make your way in between the two ears of the U, gently separate just enough that you can remove the clip from this area, and we'll slide the lever off of there. To get this off of here, you're going to find that it's a little bit challenging. You can try several different ways. You can either use a small pick, screwdriver, or some pliers, whatever's easiest for you. I'm going to attempt to use some pliers. I'm going to go up against my two ears here and up against my tab, and we'll see if we can gently press this. We want to try to spread those ears. Okay. Now, as you can tell, it is working, so this is a good sign. I'm just going to gently pry this out of place now. My new hardware kit does come with a new one of these clips. If you are not replacing the hardware, you want to be careful not to damage this in a way that it's not usable. There's our small horseshoe clip. Now we should be able to take hold of that lever. We're going to carefully pull it out and away from our brake shoe. Prior to installation of any brand new part, of course, we need to make sure we clean and inspect our mounting areas. Now, as far as this is concerned, we need to pay special attention to any raised areas on our backing plate. You can see how these areas do stand out in comparison to the rest of the backing plate. This is the areas that the shoe will hit up against, and it needs to be clean. Go ahead and use a wire brush or some sandpaper, whatever's easiest for you. Now, after you've cleaned those 6 areas, we also want to make sure that there's no miscellaneous debris that's hanging off of it, such as rust or rot or anything the like. That's going to cause noise when you're driving down the road. Typically, you're going to find that you have some debris up along the top of the wheel bearing. Just go ahead and scrape that right out of there. We don't want anything falling down in the brakes once we have everything done here. And then lastly, after you've finished with that backing plate and along the top of the wheel bearing, let's make sure we clean our emergency brake lever. Just go ahead and clean both sides of this and then just double check to make sure it's not rotted, weak, or damaged. This looks good. Now that we have that cleaned, let's make sure we also clean and inspect our adjuster. For this, we're going to remove the end cap. That should slide right out of place. After that, we're going to completely unscrew this so we can clean the threaded portion of the adjuster. If this is stuck for some reason, you can carefully use a vise and some pliers to break it free. Typically, it should unscrew. Now that I have it apart, I'm going to make sure I clean the entire threaded area. We want to make sure that we do not have any binding. Once it's cleaned, we can continue on to re-lubricating. Let's get the smooth side there. Now we're just going to make sure we clean and inspect this as well. And then the cap, same thing here. Just go ahead and clean out the inside. Let's apply some lubricant to the threaded area first. For this, I'm using some high temperature caliper lubricant. This is also going to help keep moisture out and away from this area so it doesn't get seized up on us. We'll continue on to fully screwing this into the fully seated position here. We'll add some lubricant to the smooth side next. Once again, this is going to help keep moisture out of the area. We fully cleaned our adjuster. Let's get back over to the vehicle. We'll just make sure there's no fluid making its way out of our wheel cylinder seals here, and we'll continue on with our parking brake lever. Now for this, I always like to use some anti-seize up against this forward side. When we have our shoe in place, we want to make sure that it is lubricated. So I'm just going to use the anti-seize directly around my circular port here, and then just a tiny bit down along this flat, smooth area. Now it's time to prepare to install our rearward shoe. You're going to find that you have 2 of these shoes, and they each look a little bit different. Now it's time to install our rearward shoe. When you go to install these, you're going to find that your kit has 2 of these shoes, but if you are looking at the upper tab, you're going to find that it's different on either side. So we'll just compare it to our original shoe, so we know exactly which one we need, and the opposite would be for the other side of the vehicle. So I know I have the correct shoe. I'm going to come over to the front now, and I'm going to pivot my lever. Now we have the smooth side up against the shoe. It has our lubricant as well, and we can insert our small U-shaped clip. For this clip, we'll slide it into place, and then you have to try to squeeze the 2 ears together, preventing it from falling apart. We'll just pivot it so we can gain access to each of those two ears. We can squeeze it with some pliers fairly simply here. You can see my two ears are touching. I can pivot this. It's not binding in any way, but it's definitely not falling apart. So now our rearward shoe would sit in this area. Prior to fully installing it though, let's apply some high temperature caliper lubricant to each of the raised areas that we had cleaned on the backing plate. As we make our way around, a quick pit stop in the center. When we go to install our shoe, we're going to take one of our brand new pins and we'll take it and slide it through our backing plate. We'll have to hold on to this as we continue on. We'll take our shoe, start bringing it up in a position here. We're really just kind of setting it in place for now. Of course, we will be moving things around as necessary. Now, as we continue on to this, you can tell that it is slotted. We need to make sure that the end of our pin slides in through that slotted area. I have my tool. You can use those pliers if necessary. Now at this point, I'm holding the pin along the backside, I'm pressing my spring, and I'm going to try to slide this pin straight on through that end cap. Now that I have that in place, we need to double check directly in the center. We want to make sure that the pin head is sitting perpendicular to the slot on our cap. We don't want it so it's anywhere near being parallel. Now that shoe is in place, we're going to start with our upper spring here. We have it in the proper orientation, so the longer spring area is facing towards the front and the shorter area is towards the rear. We're going to take this and slide it straight through this port. You can see it in that shoe. And now we can rest it along the top of the wheel bearing. Now it's time to install that cleaned and lubricated adjuster. Now we need to make sure we have it in the proper orientation. We have the adjustment cog towards the rear of the vehicle. Let's pay attention to this small cap. This also needs to be in the proper orientation. We have this large slot that's going to go on the inboard side towards that emergency brake lever, and the small slot you can see right along here is for our brake adjustment lever. So let's carefully take this and get it in position. You're going to find the slot fits right over that parking brake lever on the back side. Rest it right in there. It's time for the forward shoe. Now when we go to install this, we have it in the proper orientation. We'll carefully start getting this in position. Now we have to get our spring in place first. We're going to come at an angle. We'll start swinging it around. We have our adjuster that needs to slide into here, but we also want to pay attention up along the top where it connects to the wheel cylinder. As we're pulling this into position, be very careful not to pull the rearward shoe too far forward, causing an issue to your wheel cylinder. We'll carefully lift the spring to an area we can easily see. We'll get this in position here. Should just slide right into that hole. Now it's time for the adjuster. We're bringing that up towards its groove. Just careful for any pinch points as we continue on swinging this over. We have our anchor pin. You know what to do. It's coming from the back side of the backing plate straight through this hole here. Now that I have that through, I'm just going to angle it so the hooked area is facing up and down. That's going to hold the spring for me while I continue on. We have our cap. Line it up. And of course our tool. We're going to press this in and gently twist as necessary. There we are. Just make sure that's completely seated in place. It's perpendicular to the slot. This is looking good. Let's go ahead and get this in place. We'll just slide this area right over here. And now we have the upper spring. As you remember during the removal process, when we removed the original, we had a small spacer. So of course we're going to insert that onto the brand new spring. We'll make sure we have the spring in the proper orientation. Let's go ahead and get this in place. Now you can see I have the spacer up and above my adjuster. We'll continue on to swinging this over, and it's going to go right onto this area here. We're using our cutters as careful as possible. We do not want to cause any damage. Let's just double check to make sure each one of these areas is properly secured in place. We'll continue on down along the bottom next. Now it's time for our lower spring. As we go to get this in position, I like to take my forward shoe and I'm going to pull it out of position. As you can tell, that shortens the gap. Now we should be able to get that spring in place. Just swing it over into position here. Slide it under here. Gently flex our shoe back to the original position. There we are. Let's just double check that. This looks good. Now, of course, prior to installing our brake drum and adjusting our shoes, let's make sure we clean our hub mating surface. I'm just going to use a wire brush for this. Before we go too much further here, let's talk about the adjustment of your rear shoes. Now for this, we have our adjustment cog located just in this area. You also have your adjuster lever. For that lever, I like to use an angled pick. You should be able to pull the lever away from the adjustment cog. Now the adjustment is actually going to be made from the back side of the backing plate. Looking back here, you can see that there's a small rubber plug. Let's go ahead and remove that so we can use our tool in through the backside with that adjustment cog. Just a quick inspection of that boot, replace as necessary. Now of course you can change out your angled pick as necessary. You can also use a flat blade screwdriver. Just going to come right underneath this area. I'm going underneath my adjuster. You can see I'm pressing on that lever. As I'm holding that away from my adjustment cog, I can continue on with my small pry bar or flathead screwdriver, and I'm going to make my adjustment for those shoes. You can turn this one direction or the other. Now, as I mentioned, this would be done with the brake drum on, so I'm going to go ahead and put that on now. When we make our adjustment, we want to be carefully turning the drum. We're listening for a little bit of noise from the brake shoes hitting up against the brake drum. We don't want to go so tight that you have to force the drum to turn. That's going to cause friction. Friction causes heat, and things may seize up on you. Prior to installing that drum, let's just make sure we clean the drum and apply some anti-seize to our hub mating surface first. Now, you shouldn't need much anti-seize here. Just a thin coating all the way around should do. Now let's clean our brake drum. When cleaning the brake drum, we're paying attention to the area that goes up against the hub and our braking surface. Remove any oils or miscellaneous debris. I'm just going to use some parts cleaner and a clean rag. Now here's where we'll make our adjustment. When doing so, we're pressing the drum up against our hub. Continuing along the inboard side here, we can make our adjustment. Go ahead and use your pick if necessary, and of course your small pry bar or flathead screwdriver. Typically the pick will only be necessary if you need to de-adjust, or essentially bring the shoes back towards each other. You hear that clicking noise? That's the sound of our adjustment lever doing its job. Now you can tell that I still spin freely. I do have a slight amount of drag here. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Once again, drag creates heat and that can cause an issue. Now just keep in mind, if it's not properly adjusted, you're going to find you have an issue with your rear brakes. Take your time, do the best you can. After you finished making your adjustment, it's time for the rubber protective plug. Go ahead and slide that into place into the backing plate. Make sure it's properly seated so no moisture or debris make its way into your braking system. One last quick inspection in this area and we can reinstall our wheel. Once you have your wheel in place, continue on with all 5 of your 21mm lug nuts. We'll bottom them out, get the wheel safely back down on the ground, and torque each of these to 76 foot-pounds. Let's double check our adjustment to make sure that there isn't too much drag when we try to spin the wheel. Perfect. Let's get this a little closer to the ground. Now that we have the wheel back on the ground, we're going to be torquing this in a crisscross manner to that 76 foot-pounds. Torqued. Okay, friend, we finished the installation on one side of our vehicle. Go over to the other side of the vehicle and repeat this exact same process. After that, you're going to pump up the brake pedal till it feels firm and take your vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.